Hey, welcome back. Now, we have attacking, which is awesome, but there are a few issues, such as spamming the attack. And if I click the left mouse button very rapidly, I'm starting those attack animations, and I can just continue to do so. And I shouldn't be able to attack if I'm already in the middle of an attack. In fact, I shouldn't be able to attack just in any circumstance. I should be able to attack only if I'm unoccupied. So we're going to take care of that in this lecture. But before we do that, I want to show you that I did find a better running animation. I just wasn't very happy with this running animation. It kind of looks silly with the Echo character. So I hunted around on Mixamo, and I stumbled across this animation, which is a sword and shield run. So you can search for sword and shield run, and the little thumbnail shows this knight with a sword and shield running. And really, it's just a running animation. So I checked In Place and downloaded this without skin and added this to my assets folder, which contains animations in it. And I went ahead and imported it into Unreal Engine the same way that I've shown you how to do this several times already. So I now have this sword and shield run on XSpot, and I want to retarget this over to Echo. So I'm going to go into my XSpot rigs folder, open up my retargeter, and here's the sword and shield run. Here's what it looks like if we were to retarget it. Now the legs look a little funky in this animation, and that's because we need to edit that pose. And this is why it's so convenient to be able to add new poses. So if I click plus new pose, I can call this run pose, click OK, and now I have a new pose. And of course it looks all out of whack because if I click edit pose, I see that Echo is reset back to that default pose. So I'm going to need to adjust the bones a bit. Now I'm going to take these clavicle bones, and with my snap size set to 5-degree increments, I'm going to move each clavicle up by 5 degrees. And then I'll take the upper arms and move those up by 45 to match the T pose. But also Echo has these bends in the lower arms, so I'm going to take those lower arms and move them out by 30 degrees each using that blue arc on the gizmo, and the arms look good. But if I click Edit Pose to go back to see what the animation looks like, the legs are still wonky. So I'm going to click Edit Pose to come back and see that Echo has her legs a little bit spread more than the XSpot skeleton. So I'm going to get those upper thigh bones and move those in each by 5 degrees using the green arc on the gizmo this time. And now clicking Edit Pose, I see that the running animation looks a lot better. So this looks great, and I can retarget this animation. So with Sword and Shield Run selected, I'm going to click Export Selected Animations and place this in Blueprints, Characters, Animations, and click OK. And now I have a better running animation, and I think this looks a lot better than what we were using before. So I'm going to go back into Echo's animation blueprint called ABP Echo Main States and replace the pose for equipped one-handed weapon pose. Remember, this is in the run state here. And I can drag in my sword and shield run retargeted and replace that one. I'm going to go ahead and remove that one and compile. And now if I press play and grab a weapon, now Echo is running a little bit better. I think that looks actually a lot better. And of course we can still attack. Now we still have the ability to spam the attack, and that's what we're going to take care of in this lecture. So I'll go ahead and close out of the retargeter, the animation blueprint, and click Save All so that all my work is saved. And let's talk about preventing spamming of the attack. Now let's hop back into our Visual Studio solution here. I'm in /character. And since I have all these other tabs open, I'm going to show you a nice little trick. If we right-click on /character.cpp and choose Close All But This, then all those other tabs will be closed, and we're just here in /character. And I can open the header file by holding Control and hitting KO, and that'll open the companion header file for the /character. So we want to prevent attacking if we're already attacking. And we're going to implement that, but first, I'm noticing that the attack function has all these lines of code, and we're about to add more to it. And it's generally a good idea to keep these things organized. And to organize your functions as they start getting larger, we can use a technique called refactoring. Refactoring is taking a chunk of code like this and placing it in its own function. So we can refactor all this stuff in the attack function because all of this code is doing one main task, right? And that task is playing the attack montage. So essentially, we'd like a function for handling all this behavior. And because this handles playing the attack montage, we can make a function called playAttackMontage. Let's do that. Let's go into /character, and we'll make this a protected function. And I'm going to make a multi-line comment here because as we make functions that play montages, we can place them all together here. So the comment is going to say play montage functions. And right here, all these functions are callbacks bound to inputs. So we can make a multi-line comment here as well. And this is going to say callbacks for input. Now, when we're scrolling through /character.h, it's really easy to see what sections of code handle what behavior. And in play montage sections, we're going to make a new function for playing the attack montage. It's going to be a void function, and it's going to be called playAttackMontage. And it won't take any input parameters. We're going to handle playing the attack montage in this function. So let's create a function definition for this. And it's going to be easy. We're just going to take all these lines of code here in the attack function, and I'm going to Control X to cut them and Control V right here in playAttackMontage. And now we have a nice little function to call right here in the attack function. And this is a lot easier to read. If we want to know the implementation details of playing a montage, we can go to this function and see what we're doing here. And by the way, if we want this function to be const correct, we can mark the local variables that we don't end up changing in the function with const. For example, we have this selection variable, and we can mark this with const to know that we don't change it. And right after, we have this section name, which we do change in the switch statement. So by taking one look at these two lines of code, we see that selection is const, so it's initialized here and never changed again, and then the fname is not const, so we expect to see it changed later on in the function. And here in the switch statement, it is changed. Now, we can't make our anim instance const. If we try to do that, then suddenly we get red squiggles right here, and the pop-up tells us why. The object has type qualifiers that are not compatible with the member function montage play, and it says object type is const uanim instance. So we can't call montage play on a const uanim instance, so that can't be const. And that's simply because montage play is not a const function. So now that we have this playAttackMontage function, we can choose whether or not to actually play it when our attack callback is called. Now, to decide whether or not we should be able to attack, we need to keep track of the state that our character is in, and if we open our character folder here under public, we have charactertypes.h, and this is where we have some character enums. Now, we have a character state, which really handles letting the anim instance know whether or not we have a weapon equipped or not. So this is kind of related to animation poses in state machines. But we can have multiple enums in here. That's what we created this header file for. And if we want to have a particular state related to our character's combat status, we can make an enum for that. So I'd like to make a new enum, and I'm going to use enum class to make a scoped enum. And for this enum, I'd like to keep track of our character's state pertaining to actions, such as attacking or interacting with items, and so on. So I can call this enum eActionState. And I'm going to use uint8 for the enum constants, just like my other enum. And we can add some enum constants here. Now, they're going to start with EAS, short for eActionState. And the first one I'm going to add is going to be called unoccupied. And the reason I want an unoccupied state is because our character might be occupied doing any number of things, such as attacking or interacting with an object like picking a lock or holding a big boulder or something like that. So these are all states that would prevent the character from being able to engage in other actions like attacking. And I'd like to give this a uMeta macro with a display name. So in Blueprints, it'll have the display name that I choose here, and I'm going to call this unoccupied. So there's one state, and I'm going to add one other state, and that's going to be for when the character is attacking. So I'll call this next one EAS attacking. And the display name will be attacking. So now that we have this enum type, we can add an eActionState variable to our slash character here. And we'll make this a private variable, and I'll place it right here under character state. So this will be eActionState called ActionState. And we'll set it to unoccupied by default. So eActionState :unoccupied. And now if we attack, we can set our state to attacking, and we can prevent ourselves from attacking if we're in that state. So let's go to /character.cpp, and here's our attack function. And the first thing we can do is check that action state. We can say if action state eActionState unoccupied. If we are unoccupied, then we can play the attack montage. So I'm going to move that function call in here. And as soon as we get inside this if check, we should set our action state. So we can say action state single equals this time as we're assigning a value, and we'll assign the value eActionState attacking. And now we'll be in the attacking state. So there's an important thing to realize here. If we're unoccupied, we can attack. But as soon as we do attack, we're now in the attacking state, which means next time we press the left mouse button, we'll check the action state. And the action state will no longer be unoccupied. So we won't make it inside this if check, which means essentially we can only attack once. In other words, we're never setting our action state back to unoccupied. So we need to handle that. But we'll get there. For now, let's just test out this functionality as is. So with the editor closed, I'm going to Control F5 to build and launch. And as soon as I press play, I can left click and I'll play the attack montage. But now we're in the attacking state, and I can't left click to attack again. I'm basically stuck in the attacking state. Now I can Shift Escape and play again, but this time I'm going to right click here in the viewport so that I don't attack for the first time. Now I'll grab a weapon and left click and attack, but if I spam the left mouse button, I cannot attack again. So essentially we're never making it back into the unoccupied state. And that's the last thing we should take care of here. And we'll handle setting that state back to unoccupied in the next video. Great job. I'll see you soon.